Great. Okay, so if you're in the right spot, this is proposal writing 1, and my name, if I can go through here, is Faye Farmer. And there's, this is about me. So we're gonna come back to this really wordy statement, but I want you to read it real quick here. It says, I'll let you read it. Okay, so that's really wordy. It kind of gives you a little bit of a background, but we'll come back to it. So that's my intro. Generally speaking, that's kind of what I tell people. So a couple housekeeping items. Q&A can be done in the chat. LJ, our wonderful events manager, is monitoring that. If you do have a question, you can unmute yourself for sure, not a problem. And just let me know. Okay. researchacademy.asu.edu is where you actually signed up for this event. And so we want you to make sure that once you're signed up for this event, you'll probably get all of the emails about that. And so just be aware that Research Academy is the way to deliver research training on research topics at Knowledge Enterprise. So if it's available, it will be archived on researchacademy.asu.edu. researchadmin.asu.edu is a really one-stop source for all the information you could ever want about submitting a proposal at ASU. It's very in the weeds, but if you have a specific question, your answer will be there, including who your research administrator is. So I always put it out there. It's good to look at it. It's got all the phases of research, the research life cycle, from submitting the proposal to managing your award to close out. So it's a really helpful site. And then finally, our site, which is my site. Research Development maintains this site, funding.asu.edu. And much of the information that's been discussed today can be found here. So we regularly put out a weekly email newsletter, and I encourage you to sign up for that. And then we post all of our limited submissions. Those are anything that's limited by the institution. We do all of proposal support requests out of that, and all of our events are posted there too, along with some other events. So I just want to draw your attention to NSF. This is the kind of thing we blog about, and you'd get a weekly update on this. It's down towards the end of that email. But NSF Grants Conference is coming virtually. Everything's virtual now, as we know. And so I just want to draw your attention. Registration isn't open yet, but the link will be there at the end of that blog post. So it's on the front page of funding.asu.edu. And then the other blog post that I want to draw your attention to is this NIH virtual seminar. These are the top 2 usually sponsors of interest at ASU. There's a bunch of other sponsors, and if they have grants conferences, we'll post those as well. But I just want to get this out of the way because they are coming up immediately. Both of these are free to join and will be virtual, so you can join whenever. Okay, so there's that NIH. That link can be found on funding.asu.edu. Okay, so the workshop series. A long time ago, we started this workshop series. If you've been tracking with us, there are 7, I think, at last count, there are 7 workshops in this series. They're hosted every fall. We schedule them out, and we have speakers from across campus talk about each topic. So this is where you're at, write a proposal. So the idea is once you start at the beginning of the semester or watch these YouTube videos eventually, you can get all the way to where you need to go in 7 short hours of work. So we'll come back to this again, but the next workshop is edit a proposal, and the workshop after that is our Michael Northrop teaches you how to think about creating a graphic. The first rule of Proposal Club is, for those of you who don't know, this is Fight Club. So the first rule of Proposal Club is always be compliant. Another movie reference from Always Be Closing for Gary Glenn Ross. These are very uniquely American films. I have a couple more references in there. Anyway, so be compliant. That's the first rule. You always want to give the sponsor what they're looking for, no matter what, even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it's out of order, if it's not logical, that's fine. Give the sponsor what they've asked for. Be compliant. So how do you do that, you ask? Well, we had a proposal workshop on that, the last one last month. This is the link. It'll come out in the PDFs that are sent after this event. But Tara Morley spoke about how you create a responsive proposal. So you take the solicitation, you break it up, and how do you respond to it? So problem solve. First rule, done. So what's the second rule of Proposal Club? Second rule of Proposal Club is know your audience. Is your proposal going to a federal agency, a nonprofit, a corporate entity? Who's going to read it? Who's going to be your reviewer? Are they going to be a standing panel? Are they going to be lay audience? Are they going to be community members? Who is it that you should really appeal to? That's the second thing to think about when doing your proposals, right? Second rule of Proposal Club. So how do you know your audience? Well, good news. We have a workshop for that. The beginning of this semester, we had landscape analysis. It was trying to figure out who was going to fund you, how to go about finding that. Keith and Jamie did a great job on that presentation, and I encourage you to look at that. The second connected workshop to that is Introduction to Finding Opportunities. Melinda Marino is also on this call, and she gave this presentation. It's solid stuff, doesn't change dramatically from year to year, and it's so all of the videos on how to find opportunities using the resources we have at ASU, completely solid information year over year. Okay, so that will be also part of this. So once you find your sponsor, find who you're looking at, then you start tracking them on Pivot, and then you start reading your solicitations, and then you kind of figure out who your audience is. Okay, so that brings us to the third rule of Proposal Club. And the third rule is the one that's today, and it's about writing persuasively. But is it writing persuasively, or is it persuasive writing? I don't know. That's the editing. That's next workshop. That's Proposal Writing 1. So my pro tip, you'll see these throughout the presentation, don't reinvent the wheel. Other people have done this. Use your internet or your network. You have mentors, you have friends, you have colleagues. Somebody somewhere has done what you want to do, not the approach, but actually going and asking for money to fund a research project from someone else. So use your network. There are classes that you can take. This one in particular is about grant writing and proposal writing at ASU. It's 100% online. You can take that. You can find somebody who has taken that. You can find a professional to help you write. You can start a cohort. It's all open to you. But you can also use YouTube. So this is just recent searches that I did yesterday on proposal writing. Got all of those. I looked at NEH proposal writing. Got all those. We had people, Duke Franklin Humanities Institute from 2 years ago. Looked legit. It was an hour long. I'm sure tons of information there. And then Department of Justice, just to throw a different sponsor out there, show all of the love all the way around. And you have all of these different things that come up. Department of Justice is really specific. So I'm not surprised that it's a little bit more wonky, those search results. But needless to say, it's all out there. There's a lot of information out there. You can do a lot of research before you prepare your proposal. So we're going to do a couple things today, and we're going to talk about what's important to know about persuasive writing. Logical narrative organization. There are 3 key points. Logical narrative organization. Put the structure together. That's different from compliance. Compliance isn't always logical, as some of the proposals people on this call know. Clear language, that is straight shooting, maybe a little less on the jargon. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but clear language is important. And then finally, convincing the reader that you are the person that can execute this work, keep all the people on track, make sure your finances are managed, and your project deliverables are met. Convince the reader. Okay, we're going to go over logical narrative organization first. So I'm going to throw something out at you. So last year we did a bunch of opportunity kickoffs for the NSF, ERC, and STC, and the AI, and all of those are really great institutes. They're NSF institutes that are long-term investments in the federal landscape in certain portfolios. Do you care what I just said? No, because it was all in my head, right? There are people on the call who probably understand a little bit of that, maybe some. It's because that's my business, that's my jargon, right? If you're in a room full of people who are generalists or know a little bit, you're going to scale in the amount of information you're going to provide them. Proposals are the same way. You do not want to be in an echo chamber. You want to demonstrate that you can do the science or the research that you're proposing, but you want to do it in such a way that people are encouraged to learn more about what you're proposing. And it's not jargon heavy up front. Perhaps it can be jargon heavy later, but you can always explain your technical terms. You don't you manage those weird abbreviations in your field. Use analogies to bring people into the language that you're going to use. So that's logical narrative organization. So the second thing that it has to do with, so that's accessible language, right? The second part is actually moving people through your narrative from sentence to sentence. I will even say this, sentence to sentence, paragraph to paragraph. And my favorite paper on this is actually from 1990 and the American scientists from Gopin and Swan, because it's so highly accessible. It's very flat instructional text. Writers need to write for their readers. So if you have a highly technical audience, which we've determined before, if you have a standing panel that you're very familiar with that's deeply entrenched, you can use a little bit more jargon. You can imbue your language with more complexity. However, if you're going in for maybe a PCORI that has a community member or a community panel that reviews it, or a patient panel that reviews it, you'll have to create a lay summary. You have to create that language so it's accessible. This is where you can imagine your reviewers. What level of interest do they have? How much background knowledge might they have? Will they be intrigued and challenged by your writing? And I think of this as breadcrumbs. So when you design your narrative, think of breadcrumbs. If I give you this information here and I connect it to this information here, I can actually say in my narrative, I told you about that before. It's a little bit of that narrative organization, right? You can use a lot of nice writing techniques that way. Don't get fancy, unnecessary if you need to, if you don't want to. Just make sure it's logically organized in the narrative. Okay. So Gopin and Swan is available on the internet too. You can download it from everybody. Okay, that's tip number one is logical narrative organization. So what about clear language? Okay, so clear language actually helps you convince the reader that you have a way forward. Clear writing indicates clear thinking. You're not intimidating people, you're not showing off, you're letting yourself and your research record and your ideas flaunt your intelligence rather than your language. Don't delve into unfamiliar jargon. Don't be convoluted in order to sound smart, which everybody does. I do it. So I will overwrite and have to unwrite, right? Overwriting means using words that maybe are at a 24 grade level, and I have to come back to a 16 grade level. And it saves valuable space. So once you're logical and you've got your structure set up and saying, this is how I want them to read the paper, then clearly articulating each segment is essential to bring your reader along. Okay, stick to one concept at a time. Try and convince them of a piece at each time. So these are kind of references, are the kinds of things that belong to being clear. Okay. Another great reference for being clear is our own Dr. Holman. He's a professor in electrical engineering, and his engineering website, his website has this on it. And once I found it, it's fantastic. It's very clean, very structured. It's discipline specific, I will be honest, but it's a nice way to think about how to organize your manuscript, right? So, and we all know that manuscripts have to be very detail oriented, so that the entire point is to be reproducible, right? To prove that what you're asserting is reproducible. Okay, so we've done two things. I want to pause. I see some chats. LJ, do I have to address any questions?
No, somebody just had some difficulty with the screen.
Okay, is that something I can resolve, or are they okay?
No, I think it's just a, nope.
Okay. I'm going back in then. Okay, we've covered logical narrative organization and clear language. So what's next? Convincing the reader. Okay, we're going to talk about that. This is where we're going to delve in deeply. Types of writing. There is technical, which was the aforementioned manuscript, right? It's functional. I have to be able to follow it. It's how to make the PBJ, right? The peanut butter and jelly. It's how we take process A, do segment C with it, and get product D, right? It's dry and descriptive, and it's telling them what you're going to do. Versus persuasive writing. persuasive writing is often called marketing, and faculty often have a visceral reaction to marketing. I don't need to sell my stuff. My ideas should stand for themselves. Yes and no, because you also want to say your ideas will stand for themselves, but you want to convince people that they need to spend the time and energy on hearing your ideas. And in that way, you're bringing them in. That's the sales part. I'm not compromising your science or your research or your study area or your discipline. It's just creating that impetus, that emotional bond with your reader so that they want to come in and listen to you. So, so there's a lot of whys, it's less about the hows and more a lot of the whys. Why is this important to you? One way to think about it is technical writing describes a heart, and persuasive writing is this emotion associated with hearts. We all know hearts aren't the where we keep our sympathy or empathy, right? But that's the impression that we get, the love of the heart. Manuscripts, proposals. So today, of course, is proposal writing. So we're going to focus on persuasive writing. Another American movie from a while back, Thank You for Smoking, where this character actually is a lobbyist for big tobacco, and he's raising his son and trying to be true to his son and raise his son in an ethical way while lobbying for big tobacco. And in the face of all of this evidence that big tobacco is really bad for you, he's having this kind of crisis. It's a great example of persuasive actions, because his entire life is dedicated to convincing you that big tobacco is okay. It's a great movie, highly recommend it. Hard to watch sometimes, but totally worth it. But that's a persuasive writing technique, right? Convince people, talk to them about their what's going on really deep inside. So there's two parts of persuasive writing techniques that we're going to cover: voice and leading with the benefits, but that's next. So voice is the first part. So writing in active voice connects you with the reader. You understand, you can picture yourself there. You're a peer, you're in the story. So first person active is I am doing this. We are doing this. So it's here, right? Third person active, it's separate from the reader. You're going to talk about myself in the third person. Miss Farmer is giving a presentation on proposal writing, and that would be me writing this proposal. So it distances you from the action. So third person active is less attractive to readers, and no passive at all, right? Passive is usually used for science journals, manuscripts, political responses, some other ways of speaking. No passive in proposals. Now, this is all caveated with the fact that if they tell you to write second person in the summary of the NSF proposal, you do that. Because remember, what's the first rule of Proposal Club? Always be compliant, okay? So this is my pro tip. You're a real person and you deserve this money, you deserve this attention, and the reader sees you as that person. So that's why you want to use active voice first person. A lot of juvenile fiction is actually written this way because the narcissism of juveniles, they want to see themselves in the stories. And so that's been a really big, in the last decade, 15 years, that's been a big push for juvenile fiction because they have that connection. It's just evidence. Okay, so we're just going to go through a few examples just to drive this home a little bit more. 3 potential partners were examined. Obviously, there's no connection. Okay, they were examined by whom, for what? I don't know. So you just change that to we examined 3 potential partners. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, you took the time and effort to examine 3 potential partners? I'm interested. That's an example of passive to first. Now, there's no solid gold answer to first person active. It is completely your voice, how you want to approach it. And so here we have 3 examples. And editing in the next workshop will kind of run you through how you want to revise and improve. It's important to write it down first. So let's just say that, draft everything and then go back and edit. So another example, the center will provide education opportunities. Does the center actually, I kind of feel this big center of a bank kind of giving out syllabi. So it becomes we. We will provide education opportunities to over 50 students. It becomes, oh, well, we is who? I don't know how many, but at least that sounds like a lot of work. That's great. As part of the center, so acknowledging the fact that we're part of this entity that's going to work together, we're going to provide these opportunities. And finally, over 50 students. So now we're putting the action on the students. We'll have access to education opportunities as part of the center. Second, but it's, you know, it's okay. So again, no silver bullet, just examples of how to draw your reader in. The hospital, oh, I added this. So another example is this really passionate care, right? So you can, in a manuscript, you wouldn't want to add any emotion. But if you're trying to convince somebody that your goal is to care about patients, then this would be, so this is adequate. The hospital will support end-of-life care for qualifying patients. It's distant. I don't know what the support, it kind of makes me feel like these are packages to be cared for and they have to qualify somehow. So if we rewrote it, well, we'll provide the end-of-life care for patients. We removed qualifying. This is much more like, yeah, okay, I can get behind that. What about we can provide uninterrupted end of care life for loved ones on hospice, which is another way. So these are synonyms that you can use to augment and pull people in. So now we have end of life care and hospice partnered together as language that then all of a sudden I have a deeper respect and understanding of what's going to happen with these patients. And then finally, just another example, if you've added this emotion to it, our team is proud to provide this care, right? As if they were members of our own family. And all of a sudden I'm in, I want you to win, right? This is also what's used for like the Starbucks commercials. Any commercial that you cry at. It's that emotional tug. And you just need 1 or 2 sentences. You don't compromise your quality of what you're proposing at all. You're just augmenting the need here to fund this work. Okay, ways to check who's acting on whom or what's the emphasis of the sentence. So it's your turn. Change this in your head. Again, no right or wrong answers. The savannah is roamed by beautiful giraffes. How would you make that? First person, active. We have a couple different options. You can put them in the chat if you want. If Jamie's on, she's practiced from yesterday because I was giving this to her a lot. So I was watching giraffes on the savannah. We watched giraffes on the beautiful savannah, beautiful giraffes on the beautiful savannah. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer. You guys got it, right? Edit a sentence, create the sentence, then rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it so that it becomes more engaging to the reader. Okay, pro tip. You can create a style guide. You can say, I'm going to write my proposal this way. You can set it up as part of, if you go back to Tara's presentation last month, as your compliant stock, right? So everything that needs to go in here. And by the way, I'm going to start every sentence with I or every sentence with we. Gosh, if you don't like first person active and it's hard for you to do, decide on second person. That's okay. I don't mind. But if you create a style guide, it enhances the consistency and it looks good. You then have a measure by which to make everything match in your proposal. And that final editing of those 10 to 20 pages will go smoother. Our friends in the humanities probably have a leg up in this way because they're probably a little bit more familiar with style guides and voice. So for those in the natural and physical sciences, this kind of tends to be a little bit of a challenge. Thus, I recommend writing it down. So the first thing we talked about was voice. The second thing is lead with a benefit. Lead with the benefit. What do I mean? It's not burying the lead, it's lead with the benefit. Everything has a benefit. From art that makes us feel, it tracks us through time, it recognizes our current emotional states, it reflects our society and our concerns and our worries. That's a benefit. It pulls our conversations out of our heads to manufacturing, right? So manufacturing creates the things that make our lives easier. Everything has a benefit. There's a downstream benefit. There's a really near-term benefit. Everything has a benefit. I want you to think about that in terms of your research goals and what your research proposal is trying to achieve. Okay, one way to think about this, and I find this is what I'm going to teach you today, is learning these 4 terms. Now I want you to scribble them down, right? They'll come up often. Features, advantages, benefits, and differentiators. And I've been in this business for over 10 years and I still have problems identifying the difference. But it's a good way to walk yourself through how to identify a benefit, and we'll talk about why that is so persuasive. So let's talk about features. Features are a discrete aspect of your idea, approach, or solution. If you have a data set that nobody else has, if you have a piece of equipment that nobody else has, if you're the only scholar in mid 14th century texts, that is a discrete aspect of your approach. Advantage, how it can help your funder. In this case, funder is whoever your audience is. So if it's Bill Gates, if it's NEH, if it's DOJ, that's your funder. So what does your discrete research aspect have to do? How does it speed up your funder's progress and your funder's work? And everybody will be able to find out what their funder's work is if they go back to the first workshop, which is understanding your sponsor landscape. So if you know their national priorities, what their program goals are, then you can tie your feature to their and give them an advantage. Benefits, advantages that solve a funder's problem. So now I've transformed my advantage into a benefit to say, look, my thing can improve X about my funder, and that drives a benefit, which usually has to do with time, energy, money. So it increases knowledge, which decreases time for discovery. Something around that lines. And we'll go through some examples, but that's up to you to decide how does it advantage or solve a funder's problem. And finally, differentiators. And the way to think about this is, okay, I have a feature, it's only my feature, and it is important to who I'm seeking money from. So my data set is important, and I'm gonna go find the sponsor who it's important for. At the end of Tara Morley's presentation last month, there were 2 circles, one for your idea and one for the sponsor's idea. And when those when the Venn diagram was created and those were overlapped, in the middle is the sweet spot. This is where the differentiator exists. You have to have something that the funder wants. Say it with me. I have something, the funder must want it. Okay, so we'll go through a couple of examples here. This is and again, you're gonna write a proposal. It's gonna be fine. These are ways to enhance your text. Lead with a benefit. We will adapt spectral imaging techniques developed by our team in biology and medicine using different wavelengths of light to capture the details of faded ink and deteriorated parchment, which will allow archaeologists and historians to decode important historical documents. Completely functional. Nothing wrong with that sentence. Maybe some grammar issues. We might edit a little bit. But is it as persuasive as we could make it? Well, let's go back to our features, advantage, benefits, and differentiators and start filling it out. Well, we know that its spectral imaging and its interdisciplinary team are the key features that we've put into that paragraph. Advantage, oh, we can see things that were previously unknown. Benefit, it does expand scholarship on particular texts that haven't been looked at before, that might be endangered, in fact. Okay, so my differentiator is I have a team that's the only team that can create this technology and apply it into the situation so that it expands the experience of other scholars. Now I'm assuming a lot that the funder I am targeting, this is important for. Now that's the assumption. Okay, that's how you run through this. You have to write it down. Okay, so if we do this, we have first person active, so we're good there. We have a feature and discriminator, which we have identified in the previous slide. We have a team, we have a special technique, and we have the benefit. People will be able to do more research. Awesome, totally functional. However, you can see that it will become more persuasive if we just turn it around. Again, we have first person active. Let me go back. We will expand access and use of important historical documents to archaeologists and historians by specially adapting our spectral imaging techniques developed by our interdisciplinary team of biologists and medical professionals. So all of a sudden, I'm hooked. Okay, you want to expand access and use of important historical documents, and I'm National Endowment of Humanities, or NSF, or I don't know, somebody who cares about archaeologists and historians. I'm listening. So we've got first person active, and we've got our benefit up front. But we're keeping our feature and discriminator. So we're just telling them exactly that you want us on this team. So it just becomes a little bit more powerful of a paragraph. That's all. Okay, key concepts again, pounding it in over and over and over. Okay, did you know this guy could save lives? Yeah, this internet snake that I pulled off the web last night can save lives. Oh, yep, they just need funding. Oh, here's our proposal. Okay, we're gonna run another example if you can figure that out again. So we've decided that our team have drugs from chemicals synthesized from black mamba for treating Alzheimer's. Sounds exciting, right? We have gone into the lab, we've identified these drugs from this venom. Advantage, I'm going to a sponsor who really cares about this. You know what? We think that they can be more effective and less expensive than what's on the market because, again, black mambas, you can raise them, you can milk them. I don't know what. I've determined before this that it's less expensive to go this route versus other drugs. So the benefit is you get symptomatic relief and increased quality of life and lifespan for people who suffer from Alzheimer's and reduce the worldwide cost of treating Alzheimer's. Now, I've created some hyperbole comments here, so 50%, we're just guessing, right? So there's, but it's just to run the experiment. Okay, so now we've got the benefit, now the differentiator. Well, I didn't tell you this, but 3 universities across 3 countries have preliminary research data. So some of these countries have access, direct access to black mamba and really high-end facilities. And the person that we're talking to or leading this cohort or collaboration has demonstrated success in all of these. Okay, so that's a differentiator. For my funder, they want to know that I've got people, places, things, and it can quickly become active. Okay, so my basic requirement, we will partner with this research institute in Costa Rica, the Central de Caribe, my Spanish is terrible, in Puerto Rico, and the University of Pretoria to study how synthesized neurotoxins in black mamba venom tightly bind to nerve cells. Completely functional paragraph. I want to be clear. This is the type of paragraph you would lead with. I'm going to do this. I've got my partners. We're going to go. Fine. Check the box. Submit the proposal. Now, we have first person active. We have the people who are going to do it. And the last part is just what you're going to do. So there's really not a lot more to this paragraph. So can we improve this paragraph to make it more persuasive? Maybe. Okay. So I've got my first person, same sentence, the feature, it's fine. And then I've added the benefit. Actually, it does have a benefit. It treats Alzheimer's. Okay, so I've got a little connection here. Now, will it treat Alzheimer's in the next year? Probably not. Will it treat Alzheimer's eventually? Maybe, but we all aspire for that, right? So it's a long-term benefit, but we're maybe going to an Alzheimer's foundation. And so that's going to be important. It's fundamental research. We're going to a philanthropic organization. We want to really tie it to their mission and strategy. So let's get closer. We're going to partner with the institutes because we know that's important because that's how we get our technology. And then, so we have our partnerships and we're going to do our actual task. And then we've created this benefit where, yeah, we're going to treat Alzheimer's and we have the potential to decrease the number of people who are ailing and decrease the cost. Oh, so here we have cost and impact, right? So that's a benefit. It's getting closer to the top. And then here's a differentiator. We're the only ones who can ever do this. Okay, it's a little bit stronger, right? We're going to put these people together. We're going to have this, we can have the potential to be very impactful downstream. And by the way, we're the only ones doing this. So I'm kind of getting it. Now we've added a few words and a couple of sentences, but it's getting stronger. So the next part is, oh, $80 billion less. Again, hyperbole, grant me that, it's to make a point. $80 billion less than is currently being spent using chemicals derived from neurotoxins in black mamba venom. We could more, and I don't promise this, we could more effectively treat the 29.8 million people, so huge impact, who suffer from Alzheimer's. All of a sudden, my Alzheimer's Foundation is sitting up. You're gonna save us money and treat more people? Then I'm gonna tell you about my people. Ramirez at my partner institution, he's already discovered that black mamba neurotoxins bind tightly, making them very effective at this. And here's my point of evidence. Reference 1. Ramirez will lead this multidisciplinary team because we have all this expertise, right? So all of a sudden we have our benefit up top, somebody's perked up, and we tell them we're the only ones can do this. And then here's the evidence. Okay, so this is, again, just a way of patterning. You can write your paragraph completely in technical language and have no problem at all submitting it. But the minute you start thinking through what your benefit is and moving it to the top of that paragraph, the top of that proposal, it becomes intriguing. Oftentimes, NIH, for example, you want to start with the disease impact. If you said how your research would impact that disease burden, that is fine as their first statement. So you're just adding, instead of 20 million people are affected by disease X, you're saying my research could improve the welfare of these X number of people who are impacted by this disease. I'm just adding information for the reader. Okay, so what's your benefit statement? And how do you back that up with evidence, right? So why are you worth all of that information? Everyone likes evidence in support of benefits. They're not, mine were hyperbole, but they weren't unfounded, right? I can say broad statements as long as I can back them up. If you have a very assertive, again, persuasive is to pull people in, a very assertive statement, you can add the evidence to that and build credibility and trust with your audience member. So I've done this, and this is important because of this. Remember that persuasive, first person active draws the audience in, and you're convincing them of the why. So remember that first paragraph that I said, this is me? It's okay. I've done a lot of work. That's what it says to me. I've done a lot of really large proposals. But what about my audience? Does this ring true for? What about this rings true for my audience? Well, if I'm here with the people who are on this call and watching this video, can I do it better? Can I think of the discrete aspects of me and how it can help you as faculty members, and how that advantage can solve your problem? And then can I put those two together, the features unique to me and are important to you as a faculty member? So you're my audience, you're my funder. Can I do this with my own skills and abilities? Well, yes, because I wouldn't be in this webinar as deep as I am without being able to do this. So I have over 10 years of experience working in proposals. That's a feature. I can say that. I can say something else, like I'm accredited, or I'm a strong writer, or I have a master's degree. That's all in there. But I've chosen that this is my feature that I'm going to tell you about today. Well, it means that after those 10 years of experience, I can determine your messaging and translate faculty concepts. Just an advantage, just something that can happen. Now, what solves a faculty member's problem? I can do it fast, and I can do it well. And this is what's important, right? You want somebody who can do it fast and well to a broad audience, because you don't want somebody who does it slow and poorly to a narrow audience. So my differentiators are something that I have that you want. So I'm an accredited proposal manager with heaps of experience, and I have management experience. So that turns into my initial track of my benefit statement. This is what I got out of this is my first try, my first draft of my benefit statement. Well, I've got my benefit. Yeah, it's maybe not grammatically correct, but it's there. And this is my evidence. Okay, so I've taken it down. I can see where I've kind of gone astray. So what's my next addition, right? You know, I can work on gigantic proposals, but maybe you guys aren't going in for gigantic proposals. You just want to write a paragraph. So can we make it better? I'm easily accessible to faculty and able to increase the competitive edge of proposals through composition and design. And so I've changed it, right? I've got this is third person. I've worked on first person, so I've changed it to first person. I spent 5 years, some of my evidence, at a scientific institute, editing NIH R01s and individual investigator NSF proposals. I became accredited and created the position at ASU. So all of a sudden, I'm giving you evidence that might be important to you if you're into NIH and NSF. But if that's not yours, then am I really resonating with you? And accreditation maybe doesn't really ring your bell either, because, okay, it usually doesn't mean anything to anybody outside the field. So I have benefit. I can do it quickly, and I'm easily accessible, right? Or I guess it's not quickly. Let's go back. I can increase your competitive edge, and that's it. That's my benefit that I've decided on. And there's my discriminator. Nobody else can say what I'm saying right there. Okay, it's okay. I've got you kind of on the hook, but is there a better one? I can decrease the time to concept development. So I hear I've sped you along on your way for proposals and quickly increase the competitive edge of proposals through composition and design. I have over 10 years of experience editing and managing a variety of federal sponsors proposals across multiple disciplines. So I've included everybody on the call by saying multiple disciplines. I've included everybody on the call by saying federal sponsors. I've not lied, right? I don't do philanthropic all that often. And I include NIH, NSF, DOD, and DOE proposals. Okay, so now I've given you some examples of what I work on. And I worked closely with a team for almost a year, which eventually won an $18 million award. So it doesn't matter if it's NSF, ERC, whatever. But I can tell you that I've won an $18 million award. So now you're like, huh, this is somebody I want to talk to. Okay, I've got my benefit. I can do that for you. Really, you can stop there. I really don't care. But if I do care, those are my discriminators. Those are things that I have that you want. Okay, so I've walked through that entire example about my experience. Now, it took me 3 or 4 times, but I whittled it down. Okay, you can do it for yourself as well. You can do it for anything. You can do it for furniture. You can do it for your car. You can do it for your animals, your pets, your children. A feature of my child is that they look like me. I don't know. But you can run through this experiment quite a few times and get a benefit statement, because I kid you not, everything has a benefit statement. Do it for your technique, data, approach, or your children. How it confers an advantage to the work you do. Again, not putting a value on it. This puts the value. And then finally, insert a description of why it's not only you, that it's only you that can provide this feature, and why it's important to the person you're approaching about it. So if you're in the elevator with Michael Crow, if you're in the elevator with Bill Gates, if you're in the elevator with the World Trade Organization, who is it that you're trying to pitch to? You've got to automatically think like, I've got this thing. Now, how is it important to them? Okay. Benefit statements are scalable and flexible. Good benefit statements can become the overarching theme of a proposal and or your work overall. They exist everywhere, and I am a huge believer in the power of persuasive writing for proposals, and benefit statements are one of the ways that you can increase the persuasive nature of your proposal. Now, there's 2 more workshops in the series, and you have to go to them. The next one is proposal writing 2, where they talk about editing. And then the one after that is layout and graphics, where you can be oohed and awed over Michael Northrup's graphics. Jeannie Wilson, you can ooh and ah, but it's less ooey and ah. Okay, and that's how we finished the webinar. And I can take questions now.